Welcome to a tutorial video on using Python. In this video I'm going to talk about file input and output. When we're working with Python, there are two different ways that we can approach using files. We first use the open function to open that file that we want to edit, and then we want to consider what mode we want to work in. There are a number of different modes that Python provides to work with files, two of which are fairly generalized. That is, we can read input, that is the read mode, or we can write data, that is the write mode. There's also, we can append data, we can work with binary data, or we can work with combinations of these. And Python provides us a number of different options depending on what we want to do with files. However, we can only work in one mode at a time, so we're either reading data from a file or we're writing data to a file, but we're not doing the same thing at the same time. Let's look at an example of this. So over here we see, starting on line 2, the variable file name set to the string demo.txt. This will be the file name we're going to open. Next we see on line 4, we're using the open function, which is always the first step when we're working with files in Python. We're opening this string, representing the value of this variable, file name. And then we're working in read mode, R mode. So we're going to read data from a file. So next, we're using the fact that lines are part of an object that Python provides using the open function. That is, when we assign the value of a variable as the result of an open function call that is successful, file1 then is an object, giving us the availability to work with it to access the contents of that file. One of the ways it does this is using looping functionality, and especially the for-in loop. It will loop through lines in that file and show it to us, or let us use it in different ways. In this particular line, right here, 6 and 7, we're looping through the different lines in the file and using the print function to show them each time. This is a simple way to just read a text file and print out all of its contents without regarding it or doing anything with it. Notice right here on line 9, we're then closing that. That closes that mode. So we're opening it up using the open function to read some file and then giving it a mode, either read or write or something else. Then we're doing something and then we're closing. And this is the pattern we want to follow when we're using file input and output in Python. Open, do something, close. This protects the operating system and tells it to, hey, we're using this file, hey, we're no longer using this file. And it's helpful to respect the rules of operating systems to allow other systems, services, other programs and software that are running that might also be wanting to use those files. So we say, hey, I'm using this, I've done something, I'm now done. So that similar pattern, open, do something, close. So finally here on lines 11, 12, and 13, we're doing something slightly different. I mentioned earlier there are different modes, reading and writing. This is appending, so we're opening it to add something to it. And notice the A here for appending. This is the appending mode. So unlike up here where we just read through the files, we're now using the write function to write some text to this. So up here, we opened it, we went through it, and then we closed it. Down here, we're opening it, we're writing to it, and then we're closing in a similar deal. This is going to look a little confusing when run in this settings because REPL doesn't show writing to files exactly, but we're actually doing it, and I'll demonstrate that right now. So let's run this, where we're going to open a file, read all of its contents, close it, open it up again in appending mode, write some text, and close it again. So we see some content over here on the right hand side, and let's jump over to look at the file view. We see I've created a file here called demo.txt, which is the file we're reading from, and its content is some content, which we see over here on the right hand side. When we ran this, it opened it up, it read it line by line, there was only a single line, and then it closed it. And then it reopened it and appended something, but we don't necessarily see that over here, and it isn't reflected in that file. But it did do it, and in fact we can see that if we run this again. And we see it added it. Adding this is now part of that file, even if repo doesn't show it to us here. See, these are two different ways to work with file input and output. Again, respecting the different modes. We can either read or we can write, but we can't really do both at the same time. So we can open a file for reading, we can move through it and do different things, and then we need to close it. And then we can open a file, we can write to it, and then we can close it. And these are the basic ways to work with this functionality in Python. And as a review, as I keep saying, we use the open function to open up a file, we do something, and then we use the close function to close it, operating on what is returned by the open function. So we say, hey, open this file, use this mode, it returns information, it returns an object that allows us to work with it, we can work through it, we can then close it. Same thing at the bottom here we saw with using the append mode, open, write, close. Thanks for watching.